I was sitting quietly at the table next to my 7-year-old grandson at my son's second wedding. The candlelight danced across the pristine white tablecloth, casting shadows that seemed to whisper secrets. Suddenly, the boy grabbed my hand tightly, his fingers ice cold, and whispered with terror in his voice, "Grandma, I want to leave right now." Something in his tone made my blood freeze. "What's wrong?" I asked, though I dreaded the answer. He trembled like a leaf in a storm and replied, "Grandma, you didn't look under the table, did you?" I slowly lowered my gaze and froze. What I discovered there would shatter everything I thought I knew about my family, and nearly cost my grandson his life. If you're watching this video, please like and subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my story of revenge from. I want to know how far this warning has reached. The perfect wedding. Or so it seemed. The ballroom glowed with an almost ethereal light, hundreds of candles creating an atmosphere that should have been magical. I sat at table number 8, watching my little grandson Leo push his red toy car across the immaculate white tablecloth. His clear eyes seemed lost in a world where only innocence existed, a world that was about to be shattered. Today marked the wedding of my son Alex to his second wife, Eva. The jazz band's melody drifted through conversations and clinking wine glasses, but something felt wrong. Call it a grandmother's intuition, but the air itself seemed heavy with unspoken secrets. Alex moved between tables with a radiant smile that I recognized as a mask, the same one he'd worn since Maria, his first wife, had died 3 years ago in that terrible accident. In the distance, Ava posed for photos in her beaded wedding dress, her smile so perfect it looked rehearsed. Too perfect, like a predator mimicking prey. I watched the waiters glide between tables, their movements precise, almost choreographed. The elderly couple at our table chatted pleasantly about Leo's growth, but their voices seemed muffled, distant. Everything felt like I was watching through thick glass, as if reality itself was being distorted. Leo suddenly stopped playing. His little hands froze over his toy car, and his round eyes met mine with a seriousness that chilled me to the bone. This wasn't the look of a normal 7-year-old. This was the look of someone who had seen something terrible, the paper that changed everything. "Grandma, I want to leave right now." His voice trembled with a fear so raw it made my heart race. I leaned closer, placing my hand on his shoulder. "What's wrong, my boy? Tell me," he shuddered, pressing his lips together as if holding back a scream. Then, in a whisper so soft I had to lean my ear to his mouth, "Grandma, you didn't look under the table, did you?" Those words hit me like a physical blow. A terrible dread began growing in my chest, making it hard to breathe. The laughter around us suddenly sounded sinister, like the cackle of witches around a cauldron. "It's okay, my love. Let your grandma look," I said, though my voice betrayed the terror clawing at my throat. I lifted the edge of the white tablecloth with trembling fingers. In the shadows beneath the table, among the chair legs and Leo's dangling feet, lay a small piece of paper folded in 4. It was almost invisible in the darkness, but its presence felt malevolent, like a venomous snake coiled and ready to strike. Leo huddled against me, his breathing rapid and shallow. I could feel his heart pounding through his small body as I reached for the paper. My fingers closed around it, and it felt like touching ice. The people around us continued their celebration, oblivious to the horror unfolding just feet away. I unfolded the paper, my hands shaking so violently I could barely read the scrawled words in the dim candlelight. "Table 8. Add shrimp to the child's serving." The words burned themselves into my mind. Leo is severely allergic to shrimp. 1 bite would be enough to kill him. Someone at this wedding, someone close enough to know our table number, had just tried to murder my grandson. Memories of a broken family. The discovery sent me spiraling back through time, to when our family was whole. I thought of Maria, Leo's mother, whose smile had been like morning sunlight. She never raised her voice, never caused worry. When she laughed, it was like hearing angels sing. I remembered that terrible night when Leo was barely 4, burning with fever, his small body convulsing. Maria held him while tears streamed down her face. "Mom, Betty, I'm so scared," she whispered. We stayed up until dawn, taking turns placing cool cloths on his forehead, praying his fever would break. When it finally did, Maria looked at me with exhausted gratitude. "Thank you, Mom. Without you, I don't know what I would have done. I thought our little family would be happy forever." But fate had other plans. The phone call came on a rain-soaked afternoon. A police officer's cold voice. "Mrs. Williams, we regret to inform you that there has been an accident." The plate I was washing shattered on the floor, just like my world. Maria was gone, killed when a truck lost control on the highway. At Maria's funeral, Leo clung to me, confused. "Grandma, where is my mommy?" he asked in his tiny voice. "Your mommy is in a beautiful place, my love," I whispered, but inside I was dying. Alex changed after that. He buried himself in work, leaving before Leo woke up and returning after he'd gone to bed. The house became a tomb of silence, broken only by Leo's quiet sobs at night. That's when Lucy, my adopted daughter, became our salvation. With her warm heart and gentle hands, she brought life back to our home. She'd sit for hours teaching Leo to read, helping with his drawings, making him laugh when laughter seemed impossible. But I noticed something else. The way Lucy looked at Alex when he came home exhausted and broken. It was a look that held more than sisterly affection. I saw it but said nothing, afraid that acknowledging it might shatter what little stability we had left. The new woman's arrival, when Alex first brought Ava home, I tried to open my heart. She arrived in an elegant blue dress, her hair perfectly styled, lips painted red in a practiced smile. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Williams," she said, her voice honey-sweet. During dinner, she complimented my cooking, asked for recipes, played the perfect potential daughter-in-law. But something felt performative about her every gesture. And Leo, my sensitive grandson, avoided her gaze completely, shrinking away whenever she came near. When she offered him chocolate, he turned his face away with what looked like fear in his eyes. Fear. What 7-year-old is afraid of chocolate unless they have reason to be? Over the months that followed, I noticed disturbing patterns. Leo's teacher mentioned he'd become withdrawn. His clothes came back dirty from outings with Ava, though she claimed he'd had wonderful times. I'd hear her speaking harshly to him when she thought no one was listening. "Stay still, Leo. Don't make a mess. You're a big boy now, but you still act like a baby." The most telling moment came at Leo's 7th birthday. Lucy had baked his favorite chocolate cake, and his eyes lit up with genuine joy. But when Ava gave him only an indifferent pat on the shoulder and a careless, "Happy birthday, champ," I watched my grandson's spirit dim. Lucy noticed everything too. She'd catch Ava's cold looks when Alex wasn't watching, see how Leo recoiled from her touch. The tension in our home grew thick as smoke. The wedding day trap. And now, at this glittering wedding reception, someone had tried to poison my grandson. The paper in my hand was proof of a calculated murder attempt. But who? And why on this day, when Alex should have been finding happiness again? I looked across the ballroom at Ava, radiant in her wedding gown, laughing with guests as if she hadn't a care in the world. Could a bride really be so cold-hearted as to plot a child's death at her own wedding? The thought seemed impossible, yet the evidence trembled in my hands. Leo pressed closer to me, his fear palpable. "Grandma, please let's go," he whispered, but I couldn't run. Not when my grandson's life had been threatened. Not when the person responsible was still in this room, perhaps planning another attempt. The waiters were already preparing to serve the main course, the perfect opportunity to carry out their deadly plan. I squeezed Leo's hand. "Stay close to me, my love. Grandma's going to fix this." But as I prepared to confront this nightmare, I had no idea how deep the betrayal ran, or how many people I trusted were involved in the web of deception that had nearly claimed my grandson's life. The real horror was only beginning. The confrontation begins. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. The sound cut through the ambient chatter like a knife. Several guests turned to look at me with curiosity, but I was beyond caring about social niceties. My grandson's life hung in the balance. "Excuse me," I said, my voice carrying further than I'd intended. "Before we begin the main course, I have something urgent to address." The ballroom didn't fall silent immediately. Conversations continued in pockets, glasses still clinked, but I could feel attention slowly turning toward our table. Leo clung to my side, his small body trembling against my leg. I held up the paper, its innocent appearance belying its deadly intent. "Who wrote this note requesting shrimp be added to the child's food at table 8? Now the silence began to spread like ripples in a pond. Guests looked at each other with confused expressions. Some shook their heads, others whispered questions to their companions. But I was watching faces carefully, looking for that telltale flash of guilt or panic. Alex appeared at my side, his wedding day joy rapidly dissolving into concern. "Mom, what's going on?" "What's wrong?" I placed the paper in his hands. "Read it. Read it and tell me if you think this is coincidence." His face went white as he scanned the words. His hands began to shake, the same way they'd shaken when the police called about Maria. What does this mean?" he stammered, looking from me to Leo to the crowd of guests now watching us with rapt attention. From across the room, Ava approached, her wedding dress rustling with each step. Her expression was one of perfect concern, her brow furrowed in what looked like genuine confusion. But I'd learned to distrust perfect performances. "What is all this commotion?" she asked, her voice pitched to carry sympathy and bewilderment. "Some kind of horrible joke?" I met her eyes directly, searching for any crack in her facade. "My grandson is severely allergic to shrimp. One bite could kill him. This isn't a joke. It's attempted murder." The words fell like thunder in the now silent ballroom. Gasps echoed from different tables. Some guests pushed back from their chairs, as if the very air had become dangerous. Others began whispering frantically to their companions, the sound building like the buzz of angry insects. Ava's laugh was musical, practiced, but I caught a slight tremor underneath. "Mrs. Williams, surely you can't be serious. There's no name on that paper. Are you really going to believe some wild story about a piece of paper a child found?" Her words were calculated to make me seem like a paranoid old woman, and I saw some guests nodding, their expressions shifting from shock to skepticism. But I also noticed others watching Ava carefully, their instincts telling them something wasn't right. Lucy's revelation. That's when Lucy rose from her chair, her face pale but determined. She'd been quietly holding Leo, but now she stood like a warrior preparing for battle. "That's enough, Ava," Lucy said, her voice cold and sharp as winter wind. What happened next shocked everyone in the room, including me. Lucy stepped forward and slapped Ava across the face, a sharp crack that echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. The impact was both physical and emotional. Ava staggered, her hand flying to her reddening cheek, her eyes wide with disbelief. For a moment, her perfect mask slipped completely, revealing something ugly underneath. "You see?" Ava cried, turning to Alex with crocodile tears already forming. "She's insane with jealousy. That's why she's attacking me with these ridiculous accusations. What have I done to deserve this treatment?" But Lucy wasn't backing down. Her fists were clenched, her entire body radiating righteous fury. "The only wicked person in this room is you? You tried to murder an innocent child at your own wedding." Her words hung in the air like an accusation from heaven itself. I saw doubt creeping across the faces of guests who had been ready to dismiss my concerns. The slap had been shocking, but Lucy's fierce protectiveness of Leo spoke to something primal in the room, the basic human instinct to protect. Children from harm, Alex stood frozen between his new wife and the woman who had helped raise his son, his wedding day crumbling around him like a house of cards in a hurricane. The waiter's testimony. "David," I called out, spotting the young waiter who had served our table. "Come here, please." The young man approached hesitantly, his face pale with fear. He clearly wanted to be anywhere else in the world, but he couldn't ignore a direct summons in front of 200 guests. "Is this the paper you received?" I asked, holding up the evidence. David nodded miserably, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, ma'am. A woman gave it to me, told me to give it to the chef. I dropped it by accident when I was carrying the tray." "Which woman?" I pressed, though I dreaded the answer. Before David could respond, a sob broke through the tension. Gloria, Ava's younger sister, rose from her table, tears streaming down her face. She looked like she was about to collapse under the weight of what she knew. "It was me," she cried, her voice breaking. "Ava asked me to give the note to the waiter. I swear I didn't know what it said." "I didn't know about the allergy." The admission hit the room like a physical force. Guests gasped. Several women covered their mouths in horror, and men shook their heads in disgust. The pretty young woman, barely 18, looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Ava spun toward her sister, her face contorting with rage. "Shut up, Gloria. How dare you lie about your own sister?" But Gloria was sobbing now, the truth pouring out of her like water from a broken dam. "I'm not lying. I just did what you told me to do. I thought it was about food preferences or something." The net closed as Lucy stepped forward again, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "If anyone still doubts what happened here, we can request the security footage. This hotel has cameras everywhere. Every conversation, every exchange, it's all recorded." Ava's face went ashen. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. That silence was more damning than any confession could have been. Alex moved slowly toward his new bride, his face a mask of horror and betrayal. "Ava," he said, his voice broken, "tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't try to hurt my son." But Ava had no more lies left. Her perfect facade had crumbled completely, revealing the darkness underneath. She stood there in her beautiful wedding dress, exposed as the monster she truly was. Hotel security approached, their movements professional but unmistakably threatening. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us," one of them said to Ava, as they escorted her from the ballroom, her wedding dress trailing behind her like the wings of a fallen angel. The remaining guests sat in stunned silence. The fairy tale wedding had become a nightmare, but justice was finally being served. Alex knelt in front of Leo, his voice choked with emotion. "Son, forgive me. Forgive me for not protecting you." I helped my son to his feet, my heart breaking for him but proud that he'd chosen his child over his delusion. "Alex, the important thing is that Leo is safe. That's all that matters now." The aftermath and new beginning in the weeks that followed that nightmare wedding, our family slowly began to heal. Alex threw himself into being a better father, walking Leo to school every morning, reading bedtime stories every night. The guilt he carried was heavy, but his love for his son was heavier still. Lucy became Leo's guardian angel. She prepared his meals with obsessive care, always checking ingredients, always watching for signs of allergic reactions. She taught him to be cautious but not fearful, to trust but verify. Most importantly, she helped him laugh again. One evening at dinner, Leo looked up from his pasta and made an announcement that changed everything. "I want Aunt Lucy to be my mommy." The words hung in the air like a prayer. Lucy blushed and looked away, but Alex reached for her hand across the table. His eyes were bright with tears and something else. Hope. "Lucy," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I've been blind. You've been here all along, loving my son, protecting our family. I don't want to make another mistake. Will you consider being part of our family? Really part of it?" Lucy's answer was a kiss that sealed not just their future, but Leo's security and happiness. Sometimes the people we're meant to be with are the ones who've been beside us all along, waiting for us to see clearly. Ava disappeared from our lives completely, as if she'd never existed. She faced charges for attempted murder, but more importantly, she faced the knowledge that her evil plot had failed and had instead brought a fractured family back together in ways she never could have imagined. As I watched Lucy and Alex's simple courthouse wedding 6 months later, With Leo as the ring-bearer beaming with joy, I understood something profound. True family isn't always made by blood or ceremony. Sometimes it's forged in crisis, strengthened by loyalty, and blessed by love that chooses to stay when everything falls apart. The story you've just heard has been modified in names and places to protect the identities of those involved. We share it not to judge, but with the hope that someone listening will recognize the warning signs and act to protect the innocent. How many children are suffering in silence? How many predators hide behind wedding veils and perfect smiles? If you were in my place, would you have had the courage to speak up, or would you have chosen peace over protection? Your opinion matters, because every story shared can become a light in someone else's darkness. Trust your instincts. Protect the vulnerable. And remember, sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to stay silent when evil tries to disguise itself as happiness. God blesses those who stand up for the innocent, and courage will always lead us to better days. On the final screen, I'll leave you with 2 more stories from our channel that I'm sure will surprise you. Until next time, stay vigilant and keep your loved ones safe.